Okay, this is a follow-up to the first video on chord progression where we went through all of these different possible methods. And for our class for analysis, we want to focus on learning this. It's what you're going to get tested on if you transfer somebody anywhere else. It's what you should know and be able to talk about conversantly if you want to talk about analysis of Baroque, classical, romantic music, and the rules that get broken as we move into the 20th century. And it's very specific as well, so it's easy to memorize and test on. We broke all this down into a diagram that looked like this. I cleaned it up a bit, and I put the equivalent of what the chord qualities would be if we were in a minor key. Don't forget, though, that dominant goes to tonic, predominants go to dominant. 1, 4, and 5 can play their own little game over here on the side, and circle of fifths is always going to be important. Can break all these rules, right? There are some other sequences and other devices that allow you to break these rules. And sometimes, once in a while, you just find that they don't quite do this, right? I guess the only thing I forgot to put in here is that 6 would rather not, but could go to 5. Put a question mark there, okay? And all we're going to do now is we're going to look at a couple pieces, just a few measures of each of a couple pieces of music from the literature. This is Beethoven's first piano sonata. It's the one that goes rockin' my lad, right? And then, right? We're not even going to take into account the melody for this. We're just going to look at the chords and we're going to analyze them, and we're going to see how our knowledge of this set of rules / guidelines, summary of what they did, will help us, okay? And so here we go. First off, we need to know what key we're in, so we know what chords are possible, right? All right, so let's see, 4 flats, and that would be A flat major, but you see this F, A flat, C, F. Seems like we're in the minor, right? Plus, if we could see the top, it might say that it's in the minor. But I think we're in the key of F minor. Okay? And you need to know your F minor scale. So you can go, chord 1 is this, chord 2 is that, chord 3 is this. I'm just going to presume you know that, or you've written it out, or you're just following along for fun, and you can reassure. So I'm just going to look at these stacks here. First one goes like this. And then after that, down here it goes 1, and then it does this, but it's got the E up top there, which would fill in right there as well. Okay, so not surprisingly, we're going to start on a 1 chord. Lots of pieces like to do that. 1s and 5 chords frame our phrases, right? So there's my 1 right there, F, A, C, right? Now 1 can go to anything. But in these kinds of pieces, you know, it will probably jump into a predominant, or it's just going to go to a dominant. Those are our choices. And if we look here, we have an E natural. That's from the harmonic minor, raising the E flat up, which tells me I'm probably on a dominant chord because that only gets used for 5s and 7s that are acting as dominant. And sure enough, C, E, G, B flat. This is a F minor chord, and this is a C7, and that's my 5 chord right there. Okay, so 1 went and played the 1-5 game, right? These are our 2 most important chords, remember? Burger and bun, if you saw the other video. Okay, and then figured based on this, you have to put a 6-5 if you're a second-year student, or you've gone through most of your first year and you've learned that. And this is the same right here. I'm just gonna put it there as a placeholder. I don't think in a real analysis you need to. And then where does 5 like to go? 5 likes to go to either itself or a substitute of itself. Could go to 6, but most of the time it goes to 1. We're expecting another 1 chord. And sure enough, F, A flat, C, right? It's another F minor chord. So because we knew that 5 likes to go to 1, we can anticipate 1 and go there, right? This is not forte, this is F minor chord. I guess I could put a little M there and a little M there. Okay, all right, let's go to the next part right here. Now 1 can go to anything, so all bets are off. But remember, we're coming to a phrase end here, which means we're probably going to find a 5 or a 1 chord, which means that we could work backwards, or we should just be cognizant of, as we move through here, you know, what's possible. So let's take a look at this. This is an E, a G, and a B flat, and a E, right? So I'm just going to spell it out for you. E natural, G, B flat. That looks like an E diminished 7 chord, right? E diminished chord, sorry, not diminished 7, right? And that would be a 7 diminished right there, right? Now, because that's also in first inversion, so we got to put a 6 there as well. Okay, because that's in the 7 chord, it's either going to go to a 5 or, you know, to hang out subbing, or go to a 1. It could do this. That's a possibility. The other thing it could do is circle of fifths. And if you remember, 1 goes down to 3, sorry, to 4. I'm getting ahead of myself. Goes down to 7, right? Which goes down to 3. So our choices after this 7 chord are likely to be a 1, bobble around in the 5 and 7 area, or go down circle of fifths to 3. Those are our things we're thinking about. That means we're looking at an A flat chord, an F minor chord, right? Or some other, you know, like could be another C chord or something. And if we look, we have an A flat, so that's looking good, but it's not in root position. We can tell by the shape. A flat, C, F, F, A flat, C. It's a 1 chord, which is our most likely thing, right? And it's in first inversion, like there, okay? Let's just skip ahead. Do you see this chord right here? C, G, E. That's my 5 chord right here. So this is a half cadence, which means that it's not a 1 chord because it looks different. It's going to be one of these guys right here. I think I know which one it is already. I want to teach you a trick about analysis. So this is a 1/6 right here, and you see how it's got a third and then up a fourth to the root, okay? We have another one of those shapes here. So it's exactly the same, except it's all been shoved up. See that the shape of it is the same, and we need this 1/6. So if it's all exactly the same and stays the same and goes parallel up, then it's just another inverted chord up the next number. Like if this was root position and I just took my whole hand and put it up like this, you'd go 1 chord and 2 chord. Well, this is a first inversion chord with that kind of configuration. And so then I move it all up, it's still going to a 2 chord, right? 2 chords are diminished in minor. So I put a diminished symbol there and it's in first inversion. And that's where we are. 1 went to 2, right? Remember, this 3 is an interruption. It could be there, but it's most likely just going to go to one of these. 2. And what does 2 like to do? 2 has no option to go up to these other ones. 2 goes to 5. And that's where we're at. Okay. Now, it's a little cumbersome going back to this all the time, but as you memorize this and you do more analysis, then it gets faster and faster, and you don't have to think about it as much, and you just know that 6. So it's either maybe going to 5, probably going to, you know, to 4 or 2, right? And then it's 2, oh, it's going to 5, and so on and so on. Okay. All right. Plus, we're not even really spending a lot of time listening to these right now because we're just trying to get through a video as an example. But we would listen, you know. All right, it's Mozart, K333. This is in your future. If you're in one of my classes, we'll analyze this about 7 different ways. You'll know this inside out and backwards, and you'll be able to hear just a couple measures and know what part of the piece you're in, just because we're going to go that crazy for it. This is in 2 flats, and it says we're in B flat major, and it's the beginning of the piece. There's no reason to doubt that we're in the key of B flat. We'll check it as we go along. We're just going to go to right here. That's our first phrase, our first 4 measures, okay? And it's nice because we can plot these shapes in the left hand and kind of go like, aha, that looks like a chord, our arpeggiating right here. And usually the first note of every chord shape we have is the one we use for our inversion, right? So you might have to get good at reading some ledger lines, but let's try this out. At the very beginning, there's a B flat, D, and an F, right? Right? So the beginning is like, right? But the, you know, right? So that's definitely a B flat chord right there, which is 1. We expect that, okay? Now be careful. Sometimes you'll miss this, but you see how this note is different than that note? This means this is a different chord. Let's check it out. It's a D and a B flat and a D, and way up there is a G. That's a G, B flat, D chord, not a B flat, D, F chord. And G in the B flat scale is 6. 6 is minor, and that is the fifth of the chord. So we're going to go, it's tough to say. It might be like this and then like that, but we're just going to stick with it right there until we get a more nuanced idea of it. So 6, 6, 4, right? Because fifth's in the bass. All right, now let's check out our thing here for a second. 6, we found it right here. Don't worry about this because we didn't do this. 6. Would like to pass down to here, one of these two chords, right? But could go to 5, okay? Could go to 5. Let's check it out. So we're either going to, we're in the key of B flat, we're going to an E flat chord or a C minor chord, right? Or we're going to the F chord, right? Let's check it out. I've got, I'm just going to write these in. Like you can look at it ahead, maybe pause it and take a look, but see this C, E flat, G, and then it's all the same right there. So this is a C chord, and in the B flat scale, that's 2, and 6 loves to go to 2, right? Because of the chart here. And if you want to think about principle based, if you've learned your circle of fifths, then 3 goes down to 6, and 6 goes down to 2, and then 2 goes to 5, and then 5 goes to 1. This is a circle of fifths. It's a strong progression. It's not a surprise that it didn't just noodle down a third to here, but went for the jugular, went for 2 right there, like that. Now that we have that, where does 2 like to go to? 2 cannot swim upstream. 2 must progress to 5. So I expect this to be an F chord right here. Let's check it out. F, C, E flat. There's my A right there, in case you're worried about it. It's not always in the skeleton. This is an F chord with a 7th on it. That's a 5 chord, which we expected. You got to throw the 7th on. It's in root position, so that's the correct figured bass for that. Cool. And 5 would like to go to 1, maybe 6. So we're looking for a B flat chord or possibly a G chord, but that's more rare, right? It's for effect. And so here we are, B flat, D, F, D. This is my 1 chord, it's my B flat chord, right? And if we were to label this out, we'd say, aha, root position 5 chord, root position 1 chord, but no root on the top. This is an imperfect authentic cadence. All right. Gets much easier when you can expect patterns in music because you have the summary of the history of chord progression in a diagram there for you. We're going to call them the rules. Or if you really must, you can call them guidelines, right? But makes you so much more ready to play them, or even play, but to sing and to anticipate and analyze these things, right? Now, this is a bonus bit. If you want to, we're going to skip down to here after we get down there, okay? And we're going to start this phrase over again. Right here it goes. And they think it's starting over again, but it's actually got something that happens different. You see these E naturals that are creeping in here? This is our transition, and it's changing key. So remember at the end of this, it said, remember that these rules help create tonality. You know, it's like they combine together to shape it and you hear the tonality. That's what the 1 and the 5 chord do. But they also need tonality for them to exist as rules. So if you mess with the tonality, i.e. change key or make it unwieldy or highly chromatic or something, you kind of mess with some of the rules as well. I'll give you an example here. If we stay in the key of B flat, then this is a 1 chord, and this is a 6 chord, and this is a 2 chord, and a 2 chord, and then a 5 chord, and then a 2 chord, and a 5. It's like it doesn't make sense, right? It kind of makes sense, but what's happened here is that this part of the music is changing key from the tonic or B flat to the dominant, which is F, okay? And the F scale is 1 flat, B flat, and you get rid of the E flat, which it's doing in the music here. So if we think of this to start with in the key of B flat, because that's where we've been to, and we call this a 1 chord, and then we call this is the B flat, D, and G chord. It's like this, but is that in camera? I hope that's in camera. It's like this, but down the octave, so we can call this a 6, right? 6, 4, right? Then we can also do what we call a pivot modulation and say we changed, this becomes 6 in the original key and it becomes 2 in the key of F, right? And then from there, you just think of yourself in the key of F. And now the rules get back to normal because tonality has fixed itself. So a C7 chord is my 5/7 chord because 2 likes to go to 2 likes to go to 5, right? And where does 5 like to go to? Well, 5 likes to go to 1, or in this case, it can still sit around on the 5 chord. Like it's 5 and now it's 5, 6, 5 because it went and had the root in the bass and then the third in the bass, right? My 7th up there. So it stayed on the same chord, so it didn't move on. You can always repeat your own chord. But then eventually when we leave here, 5 likes to go to 1, F, A, C. There's my 1 chord right there, right? And it's harder to see here because it's an unstable thing, but this is still a C, E, G, B flat. This is another 5 chord, okay? And it's in 3rd inversion 2, and 5s like to go to 1, and here's my F, A, C, and these things are not part of the chord. They're ornaments, but you can see the F, A, C, 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 A, C. It's all part of the 1 chord right there. And it does it again right here because transitions will do that, right? And so we messed with the tonality, or Mozart did, but we recognized it, and once we got back on track, we could use our math again. And again, hopefully you're starting to go like 2 likes to go to 5, 5 likes to go to 1, and then we fill in with more, you know, information and nuance as we get more of this table, not just memorized, but we use it a lot. So this is the short, hopefully rewarding follow-up after slogging through the whole, you know, everything that are rules here, okay? We use this as much as possible, right, which is the diagram. Sometimes if we get confused, we say, well, is it a circle of fifths or some other rule-breaking system? Have we changed key? Or is it one of those times where maybe it's better explained using a principle or a class way of thinking about things? Or is it truly just, they just did whatever they liked, right? So, all right.